Good day, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, topic being Facilitation for Choice and Control, Person-Centered Planning's Best Kept Secret. This webinar is brought to you by NCAPPS, and we'll move on to the next slide, please. My name is Alex Bernardi. I am one of the co-directors of the National Center for Advancing Person-Centered Practices and Systems at Human Services Research Institute. We are delighted that all of you are here with us today, and we see that a number of people are continuing to arrive in our webinar session. So I will continue with introductions, but just know that people are continuing to stream into this Zoom room. I would like to welcome our panelists who will be introducing shortly, and you will be meeting our co-director, Bevan Croft, shortly. I'd like to say that this center is funded and supported by the Administration on Community Living and Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. And the goal of our center is to promote systems change that makes person-centered principles not just an aspiration, but a reality in the lives of people across the lifespan. And we're delighted that you all are here with us today to continue this conversation. Next slide, please. I will go over a few webinar logistics as people are continuing to join us for this webinar. Participants in the webinar will be muted throughout the webinar, and you can use the chat feature in Zoom to post questions and communicate with the hosts. We do leave the webinar open, the chat open to everyone, and please note if you want to be entering in a chat that goes to all attendees, you certainly can. Just make sure that you select all panelists and attendees when you're entering things into chat, and then that will go to everybody who's participating in this webinar. We often see a very lively set of communications in the chat, and we welcome that. Towards the end of our webinar, our speakers will have an opportunity to respond to questions that have been entered into chat. So as these come up, please go ahead and enter your questions. We will get to as many as we can in the question and answer session, and we will also have the opportunity to share these with speakers after the webinar who can answer, and we'll post those on our website. This webinar is live captioned in English and Spanish. The link on your screen is included there, and we will be entering that link into chat shortly. This live webinar also includes polls and evaluation questions, so please be prepared as you are to interact during the couple polling times that we have, including a poll that will be coming up shortly. And we also ask towards the end of the webinar questions related to the evaluation of the webinar. Next slide, please. We are recording this webinar along with a PDF version of the slides, which is currently posted. The webinar recording, the slides, and a plain language summary will be available within 2 weeks at our website, ncapps.acl.gov. We'll also include questions and responses, as I've noted, to the materials. After the webinar, if you have any follow-up questions and any feedback about this webinar, please reach out to us at ncapps@hsri.org. Please note this email address that I just read out is not monitored during the webinar. If you have any particular questions as it relates to this webinar, please enter them into the chat. Our team is monitoring chat. Thank you. And next slide, please. And with that, we will get started with our first poll. We're really delighted that as many of you have joined us already, and we would really love for our panelists to know who's here. We'll be bringing up a poll, and we ask that you please identify how you identify in the work that you do. That includes social worker, government employee, person who uses long-term services and supports, community or faith-based service provider organization employee, researcher or analyst, family member, or a loved one of a person who uses long-term services and supports, or someone most associated with HMO's managed care organization employee. We'll give it another couple minutes, or not a couple minutes, I'm sorry, another few seconds, and then we will close the poll.
Now, do I put a what do I put? Because I'm.
Hi, Jim. You could put someone who uses long-term services and supports.
Okay.
I'm not sure if it will let you if you're a panelist. We really want to hear who else is joining us.
I won't.
Thanks. Okay, so the poll results that we see here looks like the most people who have joined us are social workers, counselors, and care managers, and we really appreciate hearing from as many of you who answered. Right after that, government employees, federal, state, or municipal, or tribal. Thank you, and we're glad all of you are with us. Okay. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to NCAPPS co-director, Bevan Croft, to take us through the rest of this portion of our webinar.
And thank you, Alex. And hello to everyone. We're really happy to be here and to be hosting this webinar on person-centered planning facilitation. We called this webinar Person-Centered Planning's Best Kept Secret because person-centered planning facilitation as its own service, as a separate service, is really only available in a couple of different states. And we think it's really cool and really valuable. So we're really excited to have this opportunity to bring this panel forward to share with you more about what it looks like, how it works, and hopefully inspire many of you to think about enhancing your person-centered planning services moving forward with what you've learned. So our speakers today are Jen Billington, Robin Cooper, Betsy Gadbois, Elizabeth Martin, Jim Moore, and Jenny Weldon. I'll tell you a little bit more about the others, but first I will introduce our first speaker, Robin Cooper, who's going to set the stage for us and really provide us with an overview of what it is that we're talking about and how we get there. Robin is well qualified to share this information with us. She served as director of TA for the National Association of State Directors of Developmental Disability Services, or NASDs, and she was there from 1994 to 2020. Ms. Cooper provided technical assistance, or TA, to all 50 states and the District of Columbia. So she's been everywhere. And the focus of her assistance has always been on developing and designing person and family-centered Medicaid financed home and community-based services. I will turn things over to Robin, but before I do, I want to share one more resource with you, and that is a person-centered planning facilitation guide that contains a good bit of the information that will be shared here, as well as some other information that might be helpful as background. So in chat now, I have put a link so that you can download the guide at your convenience. Now I'll turn things over to Robin.
Next slide. Hello. Hello. Good morning to some. Good afternoon to the rest. I feel like I should have that Johnny Cash song going. I've been everywhere. You know, I need a little soundtrack. But anyway, today's interesting day. We're going to cover a number of topics. Here they are: plan facilitation. What is it? Why do it? Who can do it? What do we need to think about if we're going to do it? And what are the experiences, most importantly, of the individuals who've had plan facilitation or used a plan facilitator? So I'm going to go through some of the nuts and bolts kinds of things, and then we're going to hear from folks who have much more experience than I do in plan facilitation, in how it worked in their lives. So next slide. What is person-centered plan facilitation? Why are we talking about it as a separate kind of thing? Well, we've tried a definition put together here, but believe me, it's one that will morph and change as we all grow and learn more about this. But so far, what we've got is person-centered plan facilitation is a process or variety of supported activities used to guide the development of a person-centered plan. Plan facilitation is a supplemental support which can occur before, during, or after the annual plan to ensure that what occurs during the annual service planning process and implementation aligns with person-centered practices and fully represents the preferences and personal outcomes defined by the individual. Facilitation can include a lot of things: coaching, training, working with families and friends, working with service coordinators, supporting the implementation of a plan, developing a circle of support, designing support strategies, and even counseling participants. So it's a very broad-based service and could include a lot of different activities. So person-centered plan facilitation is intended to be a direct service. It's in addition to case management and service coordination. And facilitation services could include any of the planning supports noted above. Next slide, please. Washington State, in their individual and family services, home and community-based services waiver program, has a service that is called plan facilitation. And one of the things they put in their definitions, which we thought was really good, is plan facilitation is, quote, a broad exploration of an individual's vision for a valued life that offers a platform for individual and his or her trusted friends and family members to express this vision and commitments of support. And that's like the heart and soul of person-centered planning. Plan facilitation is intended to be intensive and highly individualized, okay? So it's there to help people prepare for formal meetings where you would develop your official annual person-centered plan or review it on a whatever basis that is appropriate. Plan facilitation really assists individuals to articulate their preferences and goals and outcomes, making planning meetings more effective and person-centered. Next slide. What is person-centered plan facilitation? Continued. Plan facilitation really is to help the individual and family to understand the choices that they have in front of them and become knowledgeable about possibilities of paid and unpaid support, services, and activities in their communities. Facilitators can be available at times other than during the planning process to help the individual and family assess and articulate how the person-centered plan implementation is going for them. This is really critical. I think it's really important. Case managers, you're my tribe. I was a case manager for many years for Regional Center in California and in other places. Loved it, loved it, loved it. And I want to make sure we really understand that plan facilitation complements but does not in any way replace the scope of responsibility and the work of case managers. And in fact, it is there to really make the work of case managers even more effective. So one analogy that you might think of, maybe possibly in your state or your experience, is in self-directed supports. We have many situations where case managers provide the supports to individuals who are self-directing. But we also have the opportunity, especially for people who may need additional support, some more intensive support, to hire a support broker as a one-on-one service that assists the person, to teaches them how to hire, fire, train, assess their own employees. So it's analogous to that. It does not replace case management in any way. It is there to undergird and make that case management even more effective. Next slide, please. So again, this is sort of to make sure we don't get into difficulties with CMS. One of the things we would say is that case management, plan facilitation is a direct service. It is to one individual, and it has a broad scope of responsibility, like case management. But case management is usually not seen as a direct service. It's seen as an overarching or management or pivotal service in the person's life. You can do case management and a direct service like plan facilitation, but CMS says if you're going to do that, you want to make sure that if the state chooses to offer these other direct services, they should have their own distinct service definition, provider qualifications, and rate structure. So it's important to make sure that there's a real clear separation of roles and responsibilities, of qualifications, in order that we do not duplicate the work of case management or in any way replace the scope of what is certainly case managers' responsibilities. So next page, please. So this is a little list. I don't know, this is, again, we're new to this, we're learning about it. We know that plan facilitation exists in many forms all throughout the country. And we're talking more about how do we take that and really make sense of it and make it into an actual direct service that people who may need more support in their planning could identify. In fact, one state targeted their plan facilitation to people who were in transition. And that makes a lot of sense. You know, you're coming out of high school, you're coming out of college, you're moving to a different job, you've had a big change in your life, and you may need some intensive support to figure out what the next steps are in your life. So we have the typical definition of case management. This exists in a lot of the home and community-based waivers, evaluation, reevaluation of level of care. Now we're speaking case management, right? Assessment, reassessment for the need for services, plan development, review, coordination of services, coordination of non-waiver services, linking people to other supports and services, monitoring and oversight, one of the most critical roles of case managers, absolutely, and including monitoring if plan facilitation is a direct service under your programs, monitoring of the plan facilitation. Is it working? Is it as intended? Is it necessary? Is it working well with case management? And you know, on the other side, plan facilitation, the way we've conceived of it is a one-to-one direct service. It's individual coaching and training. It's working with that person, maybe, you know, going over how I'm going to present my point of view and my plan, how I want to present my plan to the planning team. It's much more one-on-one and very individually tailored. Again, not to say that case management isn't individual tailored. Of course it is. The case management you do with one person is not the same as you do with another. But you, as case manager, you typically don't do one-on-one training, like teaching people how to express themselves well in a planning meeting. That's unfortunately, case managers usually don't have enough time in the day to do that kind of stuff given their caseloads. And certainly that was my experience. I would have loved to have done that, but I was really happy when someone else did because people came to their planning meetings well prepared. Next slide, please. Why do it? Why do it? Why do it? As you are all well aware, the outcome and quality in an individual's life rests on the integrity of the person-centered planning process and the person-centered plan. It's the heart and soul. It's the roadmap. It's the critical piece of that everyone shares and understands as to how to have this person experience their life as they wish it to be. So plan facilitation, why do it? It can help people come prepared to the formal person-centered planning meeting that often has a time frame that it has to be done in, whether it's hours or certain target dates that have to be met. So having people come prepared can really move that along. The family and the circle support come to the meeting with the same knowledge and agreement as to be able to support the individual going the direction they want to go. It's really to undergird and inform the person-centered planning process, and really that focus on prior to the meeting could be really interesting. Certainly in my experience, I had some situations where perhaps the individual who's an adult may not have the same vision for their life as mom and dad. And doing that pre-planning, really working through some of that stuff can make the formal meeting so much more effective in bringing forward the concerns and the life the person wants to have. And again, this is coaching, training, really hands-on stuff so people can make be an effective member of their own planning team. Next slide, please. I think we went over some of this. I think one thing that it is important, it's not just the individual skills, it's family skills as well. And as I say, working through some of the concerns and issues that family might have that might differ from what the individual wants. And having that base kind of set together, coming in together in agreement really can be a very valuable to smoothing the path and getting to the most important stuff in the person-centered plan of what's the actual roadmap, what are we going to do, what do you want to have happen, and having more time then to choose the supports and services that make it happen. The other thing I sort of thought was interesting too, that the person-centered planning facilitation can also help develop a circle of support and help maintain those in relationships. It's really great when people have those circles, but it does take time, energy, and skill to develop and keep that circle going. And a plan facilitator could certainly participate in that as well. Next slide. Who does it? Okay. There isn't, any exact one right answer to this. Ideally, you want a facilitator who is trained and skilled in person-centered planning practices and methods, whatever those might be, okay? We have maps, we have paths, we have all kinds of ways. We have, homegrown, wonderful person-centered planning processes in many states. I've certainly read every single state's home and community-based waiver, and there's tons of great stuff in there. So, having the kinds of skills that will really make that planning process move well is pretty important. So it's training and experiencing, developing and building collaborative relationships, knowledgeable about self-advocacy skills development, has coaching skills and training skills, has experience working with individuals and has knowledge about supporting families through the lifespan, has experience in training and facilitating meetings. The publication that was mentioned at the beginning of our introduction is listed here as well, and there's some really good suggestions on the skills that might be important for facilitators to have. Next slide, please. Yeah, the question is, can case managers be plan facilitators? Well, of course, yes, they already are. I mean, they do a lot of management of the person-centered planning team and guide that team and lead that team. But as we're saying, case managers would need, when the plan facilitation we're talking about is much more intensive. It's a real one-to-one service. So yes, case managers can do that, but then it might become a direct service. Or the question for me is, how do we do that when our caseloads are not as small as they need to be for us to be able to have that kind of time to spend working one-on-one with an individual? So again, it's not that you can't, it's just that the way we've conceived of the service is definitely more intensive, okay? So it seems like, given the scope of responsibility of case management, it would be difficult to provide this level of support to an individual who needs a lot of support in order to participate fully in their person-centered planning. Next slide, please. Instead of writing out, like that you must do this, this, and this, developed a protocol and said to families, hey, these are the kinds of skills and abilities people need to have you might want to think about them having when you're selecting a plan facilitator. There's again, some references here that you can find at Minnesota's work here, and we do have somebody from Minnesota with us today. So I like that the protocol focuses on knowledge, skills, attitudes, values, experiences, and does the person have the opportunity to continue to grow in their skills and abilities? So again, it hits those things that are really important about what's needed to be able to be a facilitator. Washington's established competencies, and they have trainings that people do in person-centered plan facilitation, and they need to have a certain level of experience of working with people with disabilities. So there's a variety of ways to approach this. There's no one right answer. Yes, you must have a master's degree, and no, it's something that you would want to put together with your stakeholders as to what makes the most sense in your state in terms of the qualifications of the people who are doing it. Next slide, please. One of the questions is, what about people with disabilities, peer mentors? Of course, of course. Again, it's a question of the skills and abilities, or maybe peer mentors can do a piece of facilitation. You might include them as one of the people that can do this kind of training, or under the service of facilitation. They might be a qualified group of people that do training, okay? Another question that comes up is, will family members be paid to be facilitators? Again, the Home and Community-Based Services Waiver does permit family members to provide services. The question is, if so, what are the qualifications? What about if the person is a guardian? How do we assure that we honor emancipated adults who may or may not want a family member as their facilitator? So again, there's not a yes or no, it's what makes sense to you in your state with your stakeholders and the individuals who would be receiving these services. This is up to each state as they craft a definition to decide if they will pay family members. Next slide, please. Oh, what do we need to think about? Well, you know, we could go a lot because we're learning and growing into this. This is the first go round on this as a, hey, you know, maybe we need to think of plan facilitation as a standalone service, or do we want it as part of another service definition? As again, we agree that many states do a lot of the elements of plan facilitation, but only a few have it as a cohesive standalone service. So again, it's up to you how you want to think about it. We're suggesting it's worth thinking about as a standalone service. One of the questions that comes up is plan facilitation, does it have to be available to everyone who wants it, or are there screening criteria? Well, yeah, yes and no. The home and community-based waiver, as I'm sure every case manager here knows, if the person has an assessed need for the service and it's covered under the waiver program, they have a right to the service. So the question is well, does everybody need this? How would you assess whether there's a need for this service? Again, good questions. I'm not sure we know the answers yet. I think this is one that we're going to learn and grow into. A really important piece of this is that facilitators should not have conflicts of interest. Case managers, again, you know this, you should not be providing direct services to anyone for whom you're a case manager. Same thing with plan facilitation. So same rules. Next. Many more things to think about. How do we pay for it? Home and community-based waiver, 1959. It can be a Medicaid-funded services under those authorities. Certainly, we have some states who are doing it, but you know, we have to decide what method what financing you want to use. And again, we're suggesting the home and community-based services waiver is good financing. How do you establish a payment rate? There's tons of questions in here. Minnesota uses what they call a market rate. Washington pays $17 per quarter hour. Again, these are, whenever you stand up a new service, it's figuring out how do we pay for it and what do we pay. And do you want to put any type of caps or limits on the amount of facilitation a person can have? So these are just things to think about. Next slide. And of course, what about quality? How do you know that people are getting the outcomes that are intended of this service? How would you assess plan facilitation? How would you know that the quality is there? Again, case managers have a very strong role in assessing the quality and outcomes. What are the benchmarks and criteria? How would we know it's working? And you know, you could look at things like meeting qualifications, the case manager's monitoring and oversight, indicators of satisfaction with the planning practice, outcomes that are actually occurring. So you will have to think about how you will measure and establish the quality and outcomes of this service if you're going to stand it up as a service. Next slide, please. So fundamentally, the bottom line is, as we strive to continuously improve everyone's skills and understanding of person-centered practices, plan facilitation is an opportunity to make sure that the person-centered planning process clearly focuses on the individual. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Robin. Hopefully, Robin's you've got a better sense of what person-centered planning facilitation looks like from the service perspective, from how to set it up, a high-level overview. And now we're going to hear from folks who actually are truly living this, who have themselves used these person-centered planning facilitation services. I will note in chat, do keep the questions coming, and we've made note of them, but we did get one question from Mark asking, what's the difference between a facilitated person-centered plan and an individual plan of service, or a POS? And I think probably, as Robin has laid out a lot of differences, and then As you hear Elizabeth and Jim and Jenny speak, I think you'll get an even better sense of that because we're going to ask them. So we posed 3 questions to our speakers to kind of get us started and introduce themselves. And we're going to hear about from Elizabeth, Jim, and Jenny about how they found out about person-centered planning facilitation and why they decided to use it, how it's different for them from perhaps a typical plan of service, and also how person-centered planning facilitation has supported them to live their desired lives. So let's do it. Let's jump in. We're going to hear from Elizabeth Martin first. She's an artist and small business owner. Elizabeth has a developmental disability and uses services and supports to manage her small business, build meaningful relationships, and volunteer in her community. Elizabeth is supported by a committed circle of support, and some of them are with Elizabeth, as you can see. And with the help of an independent facilitator, Elizabeth, for the person-centered planning process, Elizabeth has planned for her future to lead a self-determined life. So Elizabeth, please share with us a little more about your experiences with person-centered planning facilitation.
Thank you.
Person-centered. First slide.
Centered planning works for me.
Next slide. Okay, let's ignore your working.
Working for my dreams, I was centered planning. I said my dreams are like building my business, Elegant Design by Elizabeth, selling my wares, speaking at conferences. My circle helps me, my dreams. My other dreams are going on vacation, getting healthy.
Next slide.
I was
For my business.
one of my business,
For my business to be
great. I was pounding the clay, doing the money, carrying it, organizing shows. That's my calendar.
great. Next slide.
Next slide. I used technology for my business. I used designs, computer, use iPad for my sales, and I do the square up for my business on my phone. Next slide. This is my website, my business. You can find my products online. Elegant Design by Elizabeth. Next slide. This is some of the shops I'm in. Yellow Door, Tune Chalud, Canvas Art, and Art Center, BVR, and that's my business card. Next slide. I have sales and orders. I do custom designs for, I sew, mail different designs. Next slide. My best sellers are bowls, fish, ceramics, embroidery, and pillows. And that's towels. Next slide. That's supports me. This is my job description. They have to sign it and I have to sign it to agree. Next slide. These are the interview, some questions I do interested in the job. How'd you heard about me? How is understand me? speaking, support, certain planning. I was don't distract, work experience, people with
Yeah.
and without disability.
Next slide.
Next slide.
No.
My family helped me with my goals, get better, going on vacation to Disney, to Seattle, and to Texas.
Next slide.
I, my family helped me
These goals.
goals with getting healthy, better bones, and water aerobics.
Next slide. No, sit down, sit down.
Oh, sorry.
Elizabeth asked, I'm Elizabeth's sister, and we asked Elizabeth's independent facilitator and independent supports coordinator to share their thoughts. So if we could go to the next slide and just read their statements. So from Elizabeth's independent facilitator, she said, facilitating Elizabeth's person-centered plan is a joy. Initially, we developed invitations and agendas together. Now Elizabeth does this, lets us know what she wants to talk about and what she does not wish to discuss. With backing from her circle of support, Elizabeth directly develops her personal and professional goals. As an independent facilitator, I may assist Elizabeth in the process, but Elizabeth is always in the driver's seat.
Mm-hmm.
We are not compelled by systems checklists or wrongful interpretations of person-centered planning that limit creativity. We are motivated by Elizabeth. Next slide, please. So to kind of hear from Elizabeth's independent supports coordinator, kind of how those two work together, we asked Elizabeth's independent support coordinator, what's her name?
Diane.
Diane Dudash. And she said, I work closely with Elizabeth in our circle to decide what she wants or needs from her family, her circle, the community, and the behavioral health system. We developed this as part of her person-centered planning process. As an independent supports coordinator, I work for Elizabeth and not the system. I answer to Elizabeth and she approves my payment each month. If Elizabeth decides that I'm not doing a job, you can.
I could fire her.
That's right. So my job is to make sure that all her needed supports are identified in Elizabeth's plan of service so that funding is attached to Medicaid covered services. People know what parts they are responsible for. And as the support coordinator, she follows up on the timelines and assess assignments to make sure that everything is being coordinated to follow all Elizabeth's needs. So thanks for having the opportunity to let Elizabeth share her thoughts. I'll pass it back to Bevan.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Very helpful to give us this illustration, and now we'll hear another one. So next we're going to hear from Jim. So I'll introduce Jim first and then hand it over. Jim Moore is a self-advocate and public speaker from Minnesota. His motto is just grab life by the horns. Jim will share his experiences of using person-centered planning to move out of a group home and into his own apartment. Jim, take it away. Tell us about your experiences with person-centered planning facilitation.
Yeah, thank you for having me again. And well, in 2010, I think it was, I moved back here from being in near Strand, Minnesota. And I lived on a farm and I didn't like it there. And then I moved into this group home in Apple Valley and I didn't like it there either. And then I met Andrew, and Andrew was my social worker at the time. He is no longer with me, but I still keep in contact with him. We go out and do stuff together, and I was just on his boat this summer, and so anyways, so Andrew said, because I wasn't happy because they were making me do things like I had a token program that if I did this, and this, like took one of it was take a shower every day. They would give me a token and I could earn rides to go wherever I wanted to go. But I didn't like that. So I knew how to take a shower and, do all that stuff. And so then I talked to Andrew about it, and Andrew said, there's this person named Betsy that does personal center planning. And so I said, yeah, sure, let's meet her and personal center planning. And I met Betsy and we went for coffee a couple times and got to know each other, and we decided to do this. And then so the next step was that to set up a personal center training session. And I did my planning with a whole bunch of social workers from Dakota County. So it was a little bit different. Do you think it was different, or am I
Yeah.
off on that?
No, Jim, it was different. Jim didn't have a very large support team. Andrew was looking for ways to help our case managers learn more about person-centered planning. So Jim volunteered to let those case managers sit in and help do some brainstorming around him. And we used a process called Picture of a Life, and developed a nice person-centered description. So go ahead, Jim. Okay.
So then after I said, Betsy, let's do this, so we did it, and I'm spitting image that it can be done. It can be done by anybody. And so then after, so I've been on my own for about 5 years now, 6 years, and me and Betsy have kept in contact. We did a person-centered planning to see what the last 5 years looked like. And I'm engaged to get married, and I live in my own apartment. And I guess, let me see here. I guess what I would tell social workers is that listen to your clients. They know what they want. And even if you think it's hard to achieve, believe in them and support them as much as you can. And also, and just be there for them. I know Andrew and Betsy are always there if I need something, or or need help with something. I know I can call them, and Andrew, and like I said, me and Betsy and Andrew go out for coffee a lot, like try to once a month, but now that's kind of been on a hold because of COVID. So we haven't been out this much summer. This is probably only the second time or first time I've seen Betsy in like a year.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Yeah, so does that pretty much describe my personal, do I need to add anything, or?
No,
I think that's great for now, Jim, and I'll come back and we'll circle back and have a few more questions for you later on. Thanks.
Okay.
And congrats on the engagement. That's rad.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. All right. And so next we're going to hear from Jenny Weldon about her experiences with person-centered planning facilitation. Jenny's a vivacious, social, articulate young lady, and she'll tell anyone that she would like in her, tell anyone what she would like in her life and what support she needs. Jenny has learned from medical professionals how to take care of her health needs. Jenny would like to share, Jenny participated in person-centered planning to map these supports out, and she'd like to share her experience in determining her supports and how person-centered planning can help others have their voice heard. So Jenny, welcome, and please tell us a little bit about your experiences with person-centered planning facilitation.
Well, I didn't have this until just recently. And I really think it was a good idea to have it done. My social worker is the one that helped me to get into this, and she is the one that found Jen Billington for me. And Jen Billington has been a great person for me. She's really helped me out a lot. And she helped me really cope with a lot of ways to get my staff to help me in so many ways, to get them to listen to me better and to do things the right way for me, and especially for my cares, because before they were just doing cares the way they wanted to, because they felt that excuse me, they felt that since I'm the only one in my house that can communicate my needs, they felt that that they could just do cares any way that they wanted to do them. And so having Jen come help me kind of do that made me feel good. And so now I feel like I have a voice to communicate my needs to my staff, and I just feel more comfortable that they listen to me now. And I still have issues here and there, but they're doing better in listening. With some of it, they still have issues here and there.
Great, thank you, Jenny. So I'd like to bring in a couple more folks to the discussion, and kind of keep things rolling. I'll introduce Jen and Betsy. Jen Billington has been supporting people for 25 years, and she completes formal person-centered planning processes and educates the people that she works with, guardians, case managers, direct support providers on important to and important for, power with, power over, and other critical concepts of person-centered thinking. And she's been providing training on person-centered thinking to various organizations in Minnesota for many years. And Betsy Gadbois is Director of Person-Centered Development with STAR Services, and she's been working in the field of developmental disabilities for 40 years. Betsy's a person-centered thinking and person-centered planning trainer and mentor, and has delivered training nationally. And she's passionate about having people having positive control over lives that are meaningful to them. So my first question is for Betsy and Jen. And what I'm interested in hearing from you both, having worked in this field for a number of years in the state of Minnesota, what can be done in your view to increase awareness and use of person-centered planning facilitation services for all? And when you answer, I would specifically love it if you could touch a little bit on how we ensure that person-centered planning facilitation is culturally and linguistically competent, and that our facilitators are culturally and linguistically competent as well. So why don't we hear first from Betsy and then from Jen?
Hey, you know, I always wonder, why do I put that 40 years in there? Like I might be able to fool people like I'm 30 or something. So thank you for having us. And, you know, one of the things that Jen and I are doing is we really started an initiative, I don't know, Jen, was it maybe a year ago? And we were really interested in kind of sharing stories like Jim's and Jenny's and other people who've had successful planning. And I think one of the things that we hope to do is share some successes. The other thing that we've done is we kind of have this mission for ourselves to get out to the counties in Minnesota and talk about what person-centered planning is, because in the title of our presentation, I think you're right on, it is the best kept secret. People have no idea that it's out there, that it's available, that you can have an independent facilitator come out and spend time, lead your team through the process. So that is one of the big things that we've done. As far as assuring increasing cultural and linguistic facilitators, we have recently applied for a grant to work with different organizations where maybe English isn't their primary language, to take kind of the foundations of person-centered planning and figure out what does that mean to a different community, people that have a different cultural background. So we have been trying to, because the way that we do it, we know it may not work for somebody who's Hmong or Somali. So we want to have some focus groups. We want to gather some information. We want to provide the training and then have people go out and train within their communities that they understand much better. So that's our big hope and dream. Our grant is out there, but we haven't heard yet. So, and Jen, I hope I didn't say everything because I know we're doing so many things. So go ahead.
It doesn't help that Betsy, or maybe it does, that Betsy and I both work together. So yes, everything that she's talked about. I think also one of the best ways that I've seen awareness happening is with teams that I have been doing facilitation with, just experiencing the actual process really helps people see how, oh, maybe this could also support someone else that I provide case management to. Betsy and I both do person-centered thinking training too. So expanding knowledge for case managers, and in Minnesota, we have min choice assessments, which are eligibility for services, educating those assessors also in how this does not necessarily have to be an additional service. It is an enhancement to services. So in Jenny's case, she was receiving pretty much all the services that her medical needs needed. But what was missing, and hopefully is being better established in her plan, is that voice for her, that Jenny is a person, and she knows what she wants and what she needs, and how to best support her, versus, as Jenny said, just doing it the way you were trained to do it, because maybe that's not how it works for Jenny. So it's not a, at least in Minnesota, it's not a you can do this or you can do that. It's a combination of both, and really making services work for the person versus the person needs to work for the services.
I'm going to add one thing. It's really powerful when you can listen to somebody like Jim talk about the difference in his life. And I think that that has a big impact when we're trying to expand services and making it more available to people.
Thank you, Jen and Betsy. I'd also like to pose this question to Angela Martin, Elizabeth's sister. Hi, Angela, and welcome. We're glad that you're here. I don't have your bio actually in front of me, but I know that you know quite a bit about person-centered planning facilitation in Michigan. So I'd love for you to tell us a bit about your background and what you think can be done to increase awareness and use of these services for all. And anything to say about cultural and linguistic competence would be great too.
Sure. Thanks, Bevan. So I work at the Michigan Developmental Disabilities Institute, which is our university center of excellence in developmental disabilities. Every state has a USED, and ours is at Wayne State University. And we have been training independent facilitators similar to the roles that Betsy and Jen have been providing for a while in Michigan. In Michigan, person-centered planning is the required way that behavioral health supports, so that includes people with intellectual, developmental disabilities, mental health supports, and substance use disorders. So every person that receives one of those services, person-centered planning is the required way that you're supposed to plan for those supports. But one of the good things is that you can choose an independent facilitator in Michigan who does just the facilitation for you, and it's a covered service under Medicaid. So you can pick the person and they're paid to do that role. That doesn't mean you have to pick the person. You could facilitate your own planning, or you could have the support of the person to help you facilitate the planning, because sometimes going alone is a little bit scary when you're facilitating planning processes. I do think that diversity, as Betsy and Jen shared, we live in very large states that are very urban, rural, and suburban, and you need to have a very diverse population of facilitators who have different lived experiences, both geography, language, cultural, and then the lived experiences of a variety of disabilities. So it's really important that the people that we recruit to serve facilitators be as diverse as the people that the system supports. So it's important to have folks, and I do want to say that it doesn't have to be just people that work in the disability field. Some of the people that we've facilitated and prepared, they're just really savvy community people that are well connected and good facilitators. Back to Robin's point, they have the flair to make things sing of a group and kind of get the best out of people. So people that are just really good at networking and have savvy skills of getting good group collaboration. So I do encourage you, as you think about who needs to be in that facilitator pool, that it needs to be as diverse as the population we support. So thanks.
Nice, thank you, Angela. All right, I have another set of questions. We can't have a webinar without thinking about how the global pandemic, the COVID-19 crisis, has impacted how we think about any topic. And so in this case, you know, and people have touched on this a little bit, you know, we would expect that COVID and that the requirements around quarantine and staying separate and all of the different disruptions that have happened have an impact on person-centered planning facilitation. So my question for each of you is, how is person-centered planning facilitation different in 2020 during the COVID-19 pandemic? And, you know, as we do, are there any learnings, any opportunities that have emerged? Anything we've learned how to do differently that we might take with us, you know, beyond 2020? So how are things different during COVID, and what opportunities have emerged? And for this question, I would like to hear from Jenny first.
Well, it's been hard because haven't really been able to get out much. And so it's made it very difficult for people to really do the things that they need to do. It's just, you know, it's made a lot of difference for a lot of people to go to appointments or go to work or wherever, or to be with family, especially for me. For me to be able to be with my family, especially, I mean, I myself haven't seen, like, my parents. I see them every so often, but just to be able to visit with them more often and just have some time with them would be nice. But I don't get to see them as much as I want to.
Mhm.
But yeah, that the COVID-19 has been hard, and to have to wear the masks all the time, and having to be the 6 feet apart and all that, that's hard. And so this COVID-19 has been hard.
Yeah, Jenny, thanks for sharing. It sure has. It sure has. Is the work that you do with Jen any different now since COVID-19 started?
A little bit, because we haven't really been able to see each other
Yeah.
person to person. Yeah, I mean, I know in a while back she wanted to be able to come to a staff meeting to be able to talk to my staff regarding some of my person-centered planning stuff, but she couldn't because of the COVID stuff. So that's been difficult.
Yeah. Yeah. Jen, how about from your perspective, from your side of things, how has it been different, and have you seen any opportunities emerge?
So the main difference is that most of the in-person meetings that I would normally do during the discovery process is definitely, they're not happening as frequently. It is always the person's choice. I always leave it up to them. Do you want to meet in person? Do you want to meet Zoom, Teams, however you want to do it? But most people are saying, let's just do virtual for right now, which can be a negative. I mean, obviously it would have been great if Jenny and I if I could have come to a staff meeting and helped her speak to her staff, just kind of been that support behind her physically, to say, you got this, just say it, Jenny, you know what you need. But it has worked really well for some other people. I've had at least 3 teams that I've done planning with that have said, this worked so well for whoever it was, because they're anxious about meeting new people, or they have so many people walk into their home and just kind of expect them to share everything about them. So being able to meet you virtually was easier, less intimidating. And it also, as a planner, it opened up to my eyes to the fact that even if someone important to someone in their life can't be physically present for the planning session, there's so many more options to engage people. Why it never dawned on me before COVID that you could FaceTime somebody into a planning session, no idea why. But that's, for me, that's a happy coincidence that I learned from this.
Yeah, a lot of us have gotten a lot more agile and learned to harness technology in ways we never thought we would have to. That is for sure. Cool. Thanks, Jen and Jenny. Jim, how about you? How is your experience of person-centered planning facilitation different in 2020 in the midst of this COVID-19 crisis?
Jim, you're muted. You're muted, Jim.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. What's changed in 2020 for me, I guess, is I really haven't been able to see Betsy as much as I would like to, and do, and it's really hard to see my mother and friends. And I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I've been out, and to mask up, whenever you're out, which is part of it. But I'd like to see my mom a little bit more, but that's probably the biggest thing about COVID is and just not being able to, like, I would have liked to, well, I mean, I know some of you are from Minnesota. I mean, I would have liked to got to meet you today, but, you know, because of COVID, we have to, I'm in one room, Betsy's in the other, because we're, you know. So I mean, I guess COVID has really changed a lot of people's lives because, and you know, it's just common sense. My mom keeps saying, why, you know, not to get political, but why do these people keep not getting the hints and you know, and wearing masks and stuff like that? That's why it's growing and it's populating. It's because people aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing and wear masks and stuff. But for me, it's been real hard, and hopefully we're hoping for a better year in 2022.
Yeah, definitely. Look into the future with hope. Betsy, what do you think from your experiences working with Jim and working with others? How is it different this year than?
Yeah, Jim and I aren't really like planning anymore. We just more like he's great. He's a great guy. He's like, hey, I like you guys. Let's hang out and have coffee. So we're not like necessarily working together. But COVID was really hard for him. I think he didn't get to see his fiance because she lives in a group home for what, 3 months, Jim?
Yeah,
That was rough. That was rough.
I forgot to tell that. Yeah, it was actually 4 months.
Yeah. So he's had a lonely period of time. As far as person-centered planning goes, it does, one of the things that I have found to be a great benefit is when people have access to Zoom, Jim doesn't, or a computer, so that's a struggle. When people have access to it, we can touch in a little bit more often and do a little bit better follow-up, and I've really appreciated that. Some people that I've supported have been extremely isolated, so we just make a point of connecting once a week and chatting through Zoom. I do, Jen is a queen of remote planning, and I do have most teams remotely, but the majority of the time the people that I'm planning with have been in the room with me, either with somebody that they really care about, or a mom, or well, they care about their moms, but somebody, maybe the family will be in the room. I think for some people that I've planned with who maybe have autism, having that, we do a very graphic process, so having that unfold in front of them has been helpful. The other thing that I would add is it seems to be a more respectful process when you have a facilitator and the person is on video, because I guess you could mute them, but the person really gets to be in charge, and you can kind of facilitate it a little bit better. People aren't jumping in quite so much. So I have appreciated people aren't necessarily talking over the person whose plan it is, and they seem to have a bit more control of what's going on.
That's really interesting, Betsy. Yeah, fascinating.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that, Betsy, and thanks for sharing, Jim.
Yep.
So next, I'd like to pose the same question to Elizabeth and Angela, if you have anything to add as well about how things have looked different for you this year.
It's really, we were on Zoom because we were on Zoom because we had to. It was March. It was because it was in March. We had a Zoom with people and came join phone and emailing and then computers, and then Circles helped me on Zoom.
Mm-hmm. The only thing you said you didn't like is what you can't have a
party because we're in food and drinks
on Zoom. And Elizabeth shared with us early in COVID, Elizabeth had a planning meeting scheduled in March 23rd, which was only 10 days after COVID shutdown in Michigan had happened. And so everyone was going through a lot, but I was a little bit nervous as a family member that it was going to be a totally different planning process. And what Elizabeth told me afterwards is that she really liked it because she is kind of where Betsy said, people listened more. And it told us as the people in her life and in her circle that we needed to talk less and listen more. And one thing that we were able to use on Zoom is that, so I hosted the Zoom because I have a Zoom account, and we pinned Elizabeth's picture. So her picture was at the top, and that seemed to make sure that people, sometimes you can do pin, or I think there's another feature on Zoom, highlight, and that seems to help. And I would, having seen it as a facilitator and as a participant, to really focus people's attention on it. But the other thing Elizabeth liked, so her circle continues to meet over the summer with people being away in the summertime in Michigan. People tend to go to their cottages, and people certainly did this summer because it was a bit safer. It meant people didn't have to miss your circle meetings, right?
Yeah.
They could join up because we were using Zoom. So when there would have been times where people couldn't have joined because we had a meeting in person, and that's what Elizabeth wanted, during Zoom, we were able to make sure everyone could participate because Elizabeth said they can join by their phone or their laptop.
Yeah, laptop.
So Elizabeth actually thought it worked, and you want to keep doing this?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we'll continue to have the circle meet, but she does like to have the party with food and drinks, and it's just not going to happen for a while. So I do think there'll be times when you'll meet with your circle and your planning that will be in person, and sometimes it'll be virtual.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it was a different learning experience for sure.
Great. Yeah, thank you. And I think the feature on Zoom is called, that you were referring to, Angela, I think it's called Spotlight.
Spotlight, yes, thank you.
Really good, kind of like, yeah, really good, like practical tip. Yeah, you can spotlight a person on Zoom during a Zoom meeting so that their picture is the biggest. So what a great way to keep the person at the center using technology by making them bigger than everybody else in the meeting. So that's kind of a cool practical way to center the person, literally. Awesome. Thank you. We did get one question in chat that I can quickly relay to you, and that is, Elizabeth and Angela, if you could in chat put in the link to your Etsy page. I think some folks wanted to check it out. So if you could put that into chat and make sure you select all panelists and all attendees.
Okay, we'll put it in the chat.
And we'll make sure to put it into chat. And I can say I do have one of Elizabeth's hand towels, some Michigan embroidered hand towel, and it is gorgeous, and I love it. I actually kind of am afraid to use it because it's so pretty in my bathroom. But anyway, so I can personally attest to the quality of Elizabeth's products. Okay, Robin, kind of zooming out to a Medicaid policy perspective, programmatic perspective, I'd like to hear your thoughts too on how person planning facilitation is different in the era of COVID.
There's so many negatives. We know, but one of the things that I was happy to see is it's bringing technology to people who'd been cut off before. There's been a loosening in the regulations and a realization that computers and internet access are essential health services and can be covered through Medicaid, through equipment, supplies, which is really exciting because we have so many people who did not have this kind of access. And since we've moved so much to telehealth and video and all, this is just an essential service now. So I'm pleased to see that we're making ourselves more available to each other through these new tools. That's really great. So I'm really happy about that. The other thing is, we were on a bit of a path to look at what people did during the day with the home and community-based settings rules. We were starting to push ourselves into new areas. Well, with COVID, it's forced us to be much more creative, to say, well, what do you like to do? What interests you? You really hated your day program? God, I never knew, So there's some real opportunities here for transforming the way we support people that have been made really stark by this COVID situation. And, now all the planning really is kind of one by one. You know, you can't just say the group goes here, the group goes there. Doesn't work. You know, we're not doing, you know, ride around in the van stuff anymore. It's like, well, what do you enjoy? What do you like? What artistic pursuits do you have? What do you like to, do you like film, dance, movies, whatever, you know? What hobbies might you want to engage in? I think that's an incredible opportunity, and I hope we don't lose sight of that and drift backwards into you know, the congregate kind of stuff we've been doing. I think the other thing that came out of COVID, it was very clear, and we've been saying it, and Jim, we're totally with you, that congregate care is not the answer to supporting people. And it brings a whole host of its own issues. Just think about how if you were in your own place, maybe your mom could visit. You know, you could have family members, right? Well, when you're in a group living situation with multiple people, it's just, it can't be done. You know, it made it clear the kind of restrictions that those settings impose on people became much clearer. And I think, and also the safety and health and well-being of rotating shift staff. We discovered, maybe not such a good idea, right? For people's health and well-being, for the people who are supporting folks and for the people being supported, right? So what did we learn? Relationships matter, having stability and the continuity of support. So there's some real amazing lessons that are hard learned. I mean, certainly none of us wish we had this situation to learn it, but I certainly hope we don't lose sight of that that kind of learning. So that's where I'm seeing it from.
Yeah, thanks, Robin. Great points. And the points about congregate care are we've been hearing and thinking about these pieces a lot, and I think it's really critical, and we may have a real opportunity on our hands to really radically rethink our systems with COVID. So yeah, thanks. All right, so now we are in the Q&A portion of the webinar, and we've gotten lots of good questions. Also check out chat because Elegant Designs by Elizabeth on Etsy, the link is in there. And one other thing, presenters, is we had a request for your contact information. So if you are comfortable sharing, I think, Betsy, you already put your email in, but if you're comfortable sharing your contact info, if people do want to get in touch with you, please do put that in chat. I will also say that as usual, our chat is sort of a hotbed of people connecting and sharing information and looking for support. We will capture all of the information in chat, and when we post the webinar recording and the slides on ncapps.acl.gov, we will include the various resources and information that was shared in chat as a resource that people can download and have available to them on our website. And also any questions, there's more questions in here than we'll have a chance to get to. So for any questions that we don't get answered, we'll work with our presenters here to do written answers, and we'll post those as well. Okay, so if you ask a question, you'll probably get it answered. If not now, then later. My first question, I think, is going to be geared toward Betsy and Jen, and maybe Robin, you can weigh on this as well. And it touches on, I think, a few of the questions that we've gotten. And that's, how do we ensure the quality of facilitation? What are the ways that people can make sure that person-centered planning facilitation services are, of the quality that we would expect? And how, and specifically, I guess I'll add, how do we make sure that, what staff competencies are we looking for? And how do we measure, how do we know if those competencies are present? And maybe this time we'll start with Jen.
You're muted. You're muted, Jen.
I don't know what's going on.
She's coming back, Jim.
So repeat the question again. I'm sorry, I was typing in chat.
Oh, no problem, Jen. What staff competencies are needed for person-centered planning facilitation, and how do we measure them? How do we do quality oversight?
So in Minnesota, to be a person-centered planning facilitator, there are no qualifications required by the state. So the company that Betsy and I do work for, Betsy provides a training for it. So I'll let her speak about it. Quality is it is knowing person-centered thinking skills, but I think the most important skill that a facilitator needs is the ability to listen without bias, and really ask those questions in a professional manner, but also in a way that it might be a sensitive topic. So really being cautious while getting to the root of what the person needs or wants, and maybe listening to their actions versus their words. And so being in tune to who you are as a facilitator, but also who the person is that you're talking to and what kind of dynamics the team might have. To me, those are the most important qualities. And not trying to impose any biases or cultural standards of your own with the people that you're working with, you're supporting.
Thanks,
In
Jen.
Minnesota, we had a group that was working through the Department of Human Services. Thank you. That was really looking at what makes a great person-centered facilitator, and we kind of came up with this credentialing kind of document, and now you can also find it, and you posted it today, Bevan, about questions you should ask of your person-centered facilitator. Do they know the history of services? Do they know what's happened in Minnesota to make sure we stay away from that? Do they know different planning processes and how do they use them? Do they know about facilitating groups? Do they know, and there's a number of things, and I would encourage you to take a look at that. The other thing that and how do you assure that things are happening for people? I can't tell you that there are certain things that must be included in a plan. We came up with 8 things. One of them that it's positive and it looks at what do people like and desire, that it's based on people's strengths. It's desired by the person. There's good follow-up, but it's because each plan is so different. You can't say that this has to be it. One of the things that we do in Minnesota, or that Jen and I really make an effort to do, is that we have the plan, we roll the plan out for the person, and then we say, well, we'd like to follow up. And so it happens often, and I don't want to lie to anybody, but it happens often that we'll go back to the team 6 weeks later and minimal has happened. And then we can talk about, this is being paid for by your state of Minnesota. And we've asked these questions of people, and how dare us ask these questions if we're not going to take action on them. So although your person-centered planner doesn't have very much authority, people see it that way. So when you come back and say, now you have this beautiful plan and Jim wants to move out, what have you done to make that happen? It seems to make things move a little bit quicker. We also have our lead agencies who have their own checklists that come out and say the plans have to be, focused on the person. So it is not a perfect system, but we've got some good things in place. The other thing that we do in the class that we offer, we provide 6 months of follow-up. It is not just go to a class, walk out and be a facilitator. It's about understanding team dynamics and what are you going to do when somebody starts to cry, and what are you going to do when somebody gets really mad, and what are you going to do? So we tell people, get in here, practice this stuff, and then maybe in 6 months after you've done it on some safe people, that's what we say. But like Jen said, there isn't that standard isn't there yet. We've just done a lot of things in Minnesota to move closer to it.
Nice, thanks, Betsy. And I'll put out a little teaser here that at NCAPPS, we've done some work stemming from work that's been done in the National Quality Forum panel on person-centered planning to do a little more articulation of what the core competencies are for person-centered planning facilitation. So stay tuned for some of that as a resource too. There may even be an NCAPPS webinar on that whole topic in the near future. Robin, over to you. What can be done for thinking about quality? What are the key quality considerations for person-centered planning facilitation?
I would say that asking Jim how it's working would be probably, or Elizabeth, or Jen, they're the arbiters of whether or not this is working and supporting them. Okay. So, I mean, that's the first check-in to me, and that's important for the circle, but that's a case management role, very much so. To say, are you getting out of, because it's coming out of your budget potentially, right? It could, this may be a service you're choosing to pay for out of your budget, right? Well, you want it to work. And I think that's really, really essential that there's that immediate feedback loop all the time, and that Jim and Jen and Angela also know where to go if it's not working. Okay. So I think that's really important. That's number one to me. Okay. The other thing is when you're assessing the quality of a person-centered plan, to me, is it how unique is it? Because if you're seeing plans that look like other plans and we called that person-centered planning for a long time, it's not person-centered planning. So one of the ways to quote unquote tell is to see how unique and individual and one by one are the kinds of things that are coming out of those efforts in the plan facilitation meetings. So I think that's really important.
I think Jim would also tell you that the strength of his plan had to do with his committed champion, somebody who was 100% on board for Jim, and Andrew was there for him. That was his case manager.
Great. And again, critical role, absolutely critical role. So yeah, I mean, and I really appreciate what Minnesota's trying to do is kind of feeling their way and saying, we have a protocol that says, if you're going to do this, these are the kinds of skills you want to make sure that the individual has. You as the person, the individual being supported or their circle of support is looking at, well, who is this person? What are their skills? Do they have these qualities that are essential to being able to do this work? And that's a really nice way to assess it. It also leaves things open enough to bring in a wide array of people. And I think that's really important. We've assessed quality by either counting the amount of stuff people got or looking at the qualifications of the individual, like did they have a degree and 3 years of experience, and we found those are not necessarily the markers. So the question to me is the person having the outcomes in their life that they want to have happen, and how did that planning, that formal planning meeting, how did it go? Did you get to where you thought you were going to get to? To me, that's truly the best way to look at it. So.
Awesome. Yeah, that makes real good sense to me, Robin. So we have just a couple minutes left. I want to give Jim, Jenny, and Elizabeth a chance to say a last word. Any parting words you'd like to share about what people here should take away in terms of your experiences with person-centered planning facilitation? Let's start with Elizabeth.
Yeah, they have to do it. It makes life better.
Makes life better.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. How about you, Jim? Any parting words?
Yeah, just believe in your clients, and anything, and have a dream. I mean, that's really what it's about. I mean, just to have a dream. Dreams do come true. And I'm spinning an image of it. I thought I would never live on my own. If you would have told me before I met Betsy, if I was gonna ever live on my own, I probably would have said no. But now, it was always a dream of mine, but I didn't think I was gonna achieve it until somebody took the time to believe in me and what I was capable of. And that's why case managers are so important, because they have to let the guardians know, that, yeah, he can do this. And I'm living proof of it. So,
yeah, thanks.
So, it's just, and who knows where this is going to go down. I might make a career of it. Who knows? I mean,
Awesome.
So.
Thanks, Jim. Nice to have that hopeful message for today. And Jenny, what do you think? Last words? Anything you'd like to leave this group with?
I've just enjoyed living on my own. I've been on my own for quite a long time myself. But with all of my medical problems I've had, I've been from group home to group home, and hospital to hospital, and nursing home to nursing home. But I've really enjoyed the living on my own for the past few years. And I especially now having had Jen Billington come and do the person-centered planning, this experience has been really great for me, because I just feel that staff has been so much better with listening to me, because I've never had staff really listen to me in other group homes as well as they do now. So she has been a really good asset to me. And I just think the person-centered planning has just been a real godsend to me.
Thank you so much, Jenny. Thank you to all of our panelists for this wonderful information that you've shared. I'm really, really pleased to be able to host all of you and to share your wisdom. It's wonderful. We're at time, so I'd like to ask Connor to pull up our evaluation. If you could, just before you log off, take a few moments to answer the 7 questions that are going to appear up on your screen, and be sure to scroll down to get all of the questions in. We do love to hear from you. And I would like to just, to thank the Administration for Community Living and the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services who support the work of NCAPPS. And yeah, once again, just to thank all of you and the wonderful information that you've shared. Please log into our next webinar. Stay tuned for our coming webinars, and we hope to see everybody again soon. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.